Hello, good morning, and welcome to today's live stream, the first of two live streams, because we're live now at 11 o'clock, and then in an hour's time, we're going to be live in the Dementia Researcher Salon, talking about acing job interviews, so a little pre-advert for that one there. I'm Adam Smith, I'm the Programme Director for Dementia Researcher, and I'm excited to be here with Katherine Gray, Head of Research at Alzheimer's Society. It's still Head of Research, right?
Yes, yeah, at the moment. So I'm covering for Lucy Devendra at the moment while she's on maternity leave.
Well, we're here to discuss an incredibly important topic, the future of dementia research. Well, that kind of sounds a little bit more dramatic than it perhaps is. But specifically, we're going to talk about Alzheimer's Society's announcement today that they're investing £9 million over the next 5 years in 3 new doctoral training centres aimed at supporting early career researchers. This investment is a significant step forward in the fight against dementia, providing new opportunities to advance our understanding of the disease and develop much needed treatments and strategies. And importantly, investing in early career researchers. So today, Katherine's going to share some insights on the initiative. I know we also have a blog on our website, so written by Martina, so do check that out as well. But we're going to hear from Katherine about what this means for dementia research and how it can shape the future. So again, thank you for joining us. And remember to stick around for the Q&A session at the end, because you'll have your chance to put your questions directly to Katherine. And so without further ado, let's get down to it. Katherine, how are you? I feel like I've stolen your thunder in my introduction.
No, that's fine. I'm just ticking off the key messages, so thanks so much.
So share the news. Tell us, what's the story?
So yeah, I'm really excited to be able to finally talk about these centres, because we've been working behind the scenes on them for a long time, and all the paperwork has taken a long time to get all organised. So it's really brilliant to be at the point where we can finally celebrate what an exciting investment these truly are. So as you've said, the Doctoral Training Centres are a transformative model to support PhD students to enter and remain in the field of dementia research. And the Alzheimer's Society has a really big focus and a strategic priority of supporting early career researchers. So this is sort of part of that package today. And as you said, it's a £9 million investment over 5 years. So a really big deal for the Alzheimer's Society. And we're really proud to have got to this point and to be supporting so many students, which I can talk more about as we go through.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, great. So let's get some details, shall we? So where are these doctoral training centers? Oh, well, actually, before we get to that, I'm interested to know how is this different to what you've done before? We talk about doctoral training centers. So how was PhD funded before to now?
So previously, the Alzheimer's Society supported PhD studentships individually. So supervisors would apply to us for funding for one student within their institution or their team or department. And then we would review those individually and then award them individually. And they would sort of work very separately. And this model is about bringing together centres and students under themes of research where they have a much sort of wider network of support and training opportunities across the students, rather than funding individual ones in sort of isolation.
So they kind of offer that kind of bringing people together more as communities and that theming side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the idea being that those students then are in such a supportive sort of collaborative environment with sort of networking, knowledge sharing, access to training, specialisms, different ways of working across multidisciplinary teams. And that just sort of really enriches that PhD studentship experience, so that they come out with a very sort of that broader context, I suppose, and the sort of a wider skill set than perhaps if you've been working in isolation.
So what are the themes, and where are these doctoral training centres?
Yeah, so as I said, we've invested in 3 centres that will run for 5 years. And each centre is taking on at least 5 students a year. So in terms of total numbers of students across the programme, 85 talented researchers will be supported in their career development in dementia research through these PhD programmes.
Wait a second, 85, 25 per year per centre. Isn't that 75?
So there are, You caught me on the map at the beginning. So there is at least 5 students. So each centre is doing it slightly differently. And some of the centres have sort of leveraged students that are provided by the institution. So the total numbers vary across the 3 centres, but overall, by the end, it will be 85.
No, that's the key word, isn't it? At least, which I didn't pick up on.
Yeah, exactly. So so I can go through the 3 centres specifically with a bit more detail. So the sort of 3 topics, we've got one looking at integrated dementia care, we've got one looking at vascular and immune mechanisms, and then we've got another centre looking at dementia with Lewy bodies. So I'll talk through those 3 in a little bit more detail to give a flavour of the kind of things that they'll be looking at. So the Integrated Dementia Care Centre is led by Professor Nathan Davies and Professor Claudia Cooper at Queen Mary at the University of London. But the beauty of these centres is that they are multi-centre, so it's not one physical space for each centre. It's lots of universities are involved in these networks. So the affiliated universities for the integrated care one include, so Queen Mary's the lead, but then it's UCL, University of Plymouth, Leeds Beckett, and the London School of Economics and Political Sciences. And they will have 29 students in total over the lifetime of their centre. And they're focusing on looking at truly integrated care, where primary care services such as GPs, then secondary care services looking at hospital consultants, and health and social care services, how they all work together so that people with dementia receive care that's really holistic and easier to navigate and supportive. So the integrated care systems were introduced in England, and there are similar systems in the devolved nations in 2022. So it's really looking at what do those systems look like for people with dementia? How can we enhance them? What research can we do to support the sort of making sure that the services for people with dementia all link together and join up for people sort of post-diagnosis, but all the way to end-of-life care. So sort of questions that they're looking at are, how can we deliver truly joined up care that supports independence, autonomy and choice, supports people living with dementia and other conditions safely and well, and ensures high quality dementia care reaches people living with dementia in underserved populations. So they're looking at health inequalities as well, all the way through to end of life. So that's that one. I'm just checking that I've given a nice overview of that one. So I think that the sort of view of that is that ultimately that would develop evidence that policymakers need to ensure health and social care is meeting the needs of people affected by dementia under these new integrated care systems.
Oh, there's so much within that, isn't there? Because I guess you could get some people looking at the more clinical side about kind of discharge and hospital admission. You could have people looking at entry to care homes and social care settings as well, and understanding how all those, well, what we know are problems where all those systems don't integrate very well, that the seamless care that somebody living with dementia receives isn't so seamless. So
exactly. And the beauty of the centre is that you'll have a cohort, 29 students looking at that whole system and what we can learn and what evidence needs to be generated to support that. So that's, it's a really, not to be cheesy about it, it's a very integrated way of bringing them all together.
Brilliant to see universities as well. I mean, this kind of just talks to the collaborations that we see in dementia research that I don't always think are necessarily transparent, because this isn't 5 professors at the same university or even neighboring universities, because you've got Leeds in there and 2 in London and down in Plymouth as well. So it just goes to show that the people leading these have really reached out to bring together what they think is going to be a great. The decision to which of these to fund must have been quite difficult, I imagine.
Yeah, it was a real challenge. It was a really, really competitive funding call. Because of the broad scope of how many centres were involved, it was very wide reaching and really, really difficult. They were hard won.
So tell us about the next one.
So the next one is looking at Lewy body dementia. So this is being led by John Paul Taylor at the University of Newcastle, and the affiliated universities joining them are from the University of Exeter, UCL, University of Southampton, University of Nottingham, and King's College London. Although there's a note on that one to say that there won't actually be any King's College students, just an affiliated institution that's contributing to the centre.
Like co-supervisors and things.
Exactly, yeah. So that centre is going to have 26 students in total. And it's really looking at, dementia with Lewy bodies is one of the most common forms of dementia, but it's really under-researched, and there are limited treatment options for symptoms at the moment, and just a general lagging behind in research in this space. So this centre is really seeking to address that by establishing a really strong research community and sort of building capacity to look at those really big gaps and challenges in this area, bringing together leading experts in Lewy body dementia from across the country to increase knowledge and understanding of the disease and how to improve people's lives that are affected by it. So their 5 top priorities are to improve understanding of the causes of Lewy body dementia, to develop better measures to track how the disease is progressing, so the effective treatments can be accurately monitored, to improve diagnosis at the early stages of the disease, support better design for clinical trials, which again are really lacking in this area, and tackle practical issues, for example, better rehabilitation after falls. Sorry, tongue twister there. But so again, this centre is really looking at, that early mechanisms, but all the way through to care and how we can best support people. So it's a really holistic take on Lewy body dementia and how you look at the bigger picture for people affected by that particular type of dementia.
That was going to be my question, actually, because it sounded to start with that one was kind of more on the fundamental, science side of things, but actually right through to preventing falls and rehab. So
Exactly.
that's interesting, because that's brought together people that wouldn't usually collaborate, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all the way from sort of cellular science to practical challenges, and I think that sort of collaborative way of working, of tackling the same topic but from different ends of the spectrum, again thinking about the experience for those students in those centres, their understanding of the disease that they're working on and the context they're working on would just be really brilliant to have that whole picture.
Absolutely. And Lewy body, and great that diagnosis is in there as well, because we know that all too often Lewy bodies goes undiagnosed, and being able to differentiate between Lewy bodies and other forms of dementia, I think, is going to be important. If you then, once we move on to having disease modifying treatments, of course, you need to really understand the diagnosis somebody has in the first place. So
exactly, and making sure that we're designing the trials appropriately for these kind of for different symptoms of dementia as well. So
wonderful. And then actually, I've got a question here, is just before we move on to learning about the last one. So one of the things you mentioned at the start there about these doctoral training centres, so leveraging and putting in this all investment into one institution, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like that enables you to push back on those organizations to also spend some of their own money on matching some of this and to expand the number of students. Is that how it's worked?
Yeah, so each centre has received some leverage funding from their host institution, which is absolutely brilliant, and it shows that those institutions are committing to a dementia research agenda, which potentially they might not have if we hadn't have made the investment in those centres. So it was really brilliant to see that come through as part of the applications.
Wonderful. So let's hear about the last one.
Yeah, so this is vascular and immune contributors to dementia. So this is being led by Professor Stuart Allen at the University of Manchester, and the affiliated institutions here are the University of Edinburgh, Imperial College London, and St George's University of London. And this one will have 29 students by the end of its programme. And this one is really looking at addressing the long-standing lack of research into vascular and immune changes involved in dementia. So it's widely accepted that cardiovascular and immune systems have a really important role to play, but it's really surprising how much we're lacking in terms of our understanding of how that's working and what mechanisms lie behind it. And the stat that they've used in their proposal is that it's estimated that at least 70% of people told they have Alzheimer's disease also have changes to blood vessels in their brains and to their brain immune cells. So even though we know this, there's, as I said, it's not been extensively studied, and we don't really understand what lies behind that. So this centre's looking at really innovative methods and has a focus on new treatments to address some of those mechanisms. So looking at things like identifying new biomarkers and molecules that drugs can target to hopefully develop new treatments, and looking at how the role of vascular and immune system changes contribute to dementia development, and use this knowledge to help improve diagnosis and develop those new treatments.
And I think some of the best progress we've seen in potentially repurposing of other medications seems to have been in that space, doesn't it? Of the vascular system.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so and we can learn from other conditions where the vascular and immune systems are changed for sure. So yeah, again, it's really exciting to think about 29 students being trained up and forming a sort of real cohort and a sort of future capacity in that space, and to drive that agenda forward, sort of across the different types of dementia.
Wonderful. So we know more about the 3 centres and each of what they're doing, and all those institutions. How many institutions is that? Have you got that number off the top of your head?
I do not have that number off the top
Wait
of
a second.
my head.
It's that.
I can quickly do some adding up.
Wait, hey, I don't know.
I guess there's some overlap between them that could make it challenging, but
at least 12.
At least 12. Let's go with that. I can follow up with a specific number.
So I'm interested for we've already had a couple of questions come through, but I'm interested for myself. What does success look like for these doctoral training centres at the end of this 5 years, or even 10 years down the line?
So at the end of the programs, how we're measuring success is those PhD students staying in dementia research. So their next position post PhD studentship, staying in dementia research. That's a really important metric of success for us. And I think, we hope that by embedding these students in such an enriched environment and an enriched learning environment, that they come out really competitive for those postdoc and follow-up, funding and contract opportunities.
Well, I'm pleased to be able to say the dementia researcher, the thing that I'm involved with, of course, is going to hopefully play a role in this. We're certainly involved with the Lewy Body Doctoral Training Centre, and hopefully with some of the other ones as well, in providing opportunities for some of the PhD students in these programs, both to contribute to our website, to help skill people up in raising their own profile, and particularly working with individuals in the last year to give them all the skills they need to look at future opportunities, and also give them lots of things to be able to add to that all-important narrative CV that we know is coming in increasingly, to be able to give people opportunities to host podcasts, write blogs, and to also be able to talk about the research that they're doing, not just in the form of a publication at the end of their 3-4 years, however long it takes them, but also to be able to keep people up to date on the progress through our website as well, and creating some new community spaces in our new community space.
Yeah. Absolutely, because we've got lots of students in each centre, but then you zoom out, you've got those 85 students across those 3 centres, and how they can learn from each other and work together is another layer of sort of working together and networking, and those opportunities being shared across the groups.
And I know that something else that you're involved with, the DEMCOM, the dementia community researchers that are working in that applied space. One of the great successes of that program over the last couple of years is their ability to bring together, I think they've got about 55 research research fellows, but literally working all over the country on really different areas of research. But their ability to come together as a cohort, I think, has made a real difference to their success and feeling part of a community. And if we can manage to do that amongst these PhD students in the same way, even though they're maybe affiliated with different DT doctoral training centres, I think that could be really powerful to help them in the future.
Definitely, and that's really our hope as well. Yeah.
Okay, let's take a couple of questions from the audience. These might be slightly trickier, so I apologize in advance. How does Alzheimer's Society plan to support ECRs beyond just funding?
So I guess I'll choose to answer that question. So I take that to mean sort of not just within these doctoral training centres, but perhaps broadly in terms of the support we offer to our ECRs. So we have a number of sort of ways of working with our funded researchers beyond just the core funding of those grants. So, you know, as you said, Adam, the opportunity to work with you through the Dementia Researcher platform and all the amazing work that does and the opportunities that affords. We have an annual ECR, so Early Career Researcher Retreat, which all of our funded researchers are invited to attend, which is, again, an opportunity to take a couple of days out to think about personal development, sort of thinking about career and sort of those wider skills in leadership outside of the sort of day-to-day of their program. We have, and we hope to expand in terms of our partnerships. So our Dementia Research Leader Fellows this year were offered a free place to attend AIC, and we supported travel costs for that. And also, you know, Alzheimer's Society is a really big organisation that does a huge amount of other work. So how can we sort of support researchers to get involved in some of our other activities? We're always very keen to have our funded researchers support us with comms and with fundraising as well. We have a lot of opportunities through to do talks and engagement with some of our major donors and trusts and things, which obviously massively help the organisation, but do offer those, again, sort of other skills development opportunities in terms of practicing your presentation skills and your lab tours and things like that. Really, the feedback that we get from our researchers is that adds a lot to their sort of skill sets and development as well. So we very much see ourselves as a partner rather than just a funder, and we're always really open to discussions. You know, we actively encourage feedback from all of our funded researchers about how we can do a better job of that and how we can push ourselves to support our researchers as best we can beyond the core funding that we offer.
I mean, I think that you've got that core metric right there up front. If main purpose number one is continues within dementia research at the end of this PhD, I think is kind of sets the tone for exactly what you're hoping for.
And obviously Alzheimer's Society can't fund all postdocs. You know, it'd be lovely.
Well, surely that's part of the package. Isn't that part of, like, everybody gets postdoc funding?
We hope that we're giving everybody the best possible chance they can to be competitive in the future for, funding from other funders that perhaps aren't dementia specific, where you're competing with other sort of disease areas. And we want dementia research to be, setting that quality bar as high as possible. So that's our sort of aim.
I think that's going to be a key success, hasn't it? Is making sure that dementia researchers are competitive in those disease kind of non-specific disease funding calls from the likes of UKRI
Absolutely.
or from other international funders as well, and European.
Exactly. And it's how do we make sure that our dementia researchers are able, are best equipped for those opportunities where perhaps they're competing with research communities that are more established, that have more funding.
Thank you. Next question. This is also from the audience. The centres have very different focuses: vascular and immune contributors, Lewy body dementia, integrated care. How were these particular cohorts chosen?
So we issued an open call for any applications to come in under any theme. So we didn't set the themes. So it was led by quality. So those are the ones that were the most competitive for funding. So we didn't set those. But we are as an organisation that supports people affected by dementia beyond Alzheimer's disease, like, we're delighted that this is a really broad scope in terms of the themes that we've ended up supporting, because it's really reflective of what we're trying to achieve as an organisation, you know, in terms of making sure that we consider diseases that cause dementia outside of Alzheimer's disease. We're really thinking about how to offer care and support to those that are already living with the condition. So,
and we should add that this isn't the only thing you're funding either, is it? Because I know right now you have other calls open. You've got the health inequalities funding call.
Yeah, so that Health Inequalities Initiative is open now. Please do check out our website for more details on that. We're looking for, that's a really big call, a £2 million initiative looking for transformative interventions for people to address healthcare inequalities for people affected by dementia, sort of around diagnosis and or post-diagnostic support, and how we can sort of implement an intervention in the system that can address health inequalities. And the deadline for that expressions of interest is towards the end of September. And then our other funding calls, so our fellowships and our project grants and our sort of training grants will open January, February time for outline applications.
And that health inequalities call, could there be PhDs and postdocs? Could there be staff in that grant as well, or is it just?
Yeah.
So again, even more opportunities. I think you've also got an end of life care.
Yes. I'm glad you're paying attention, Adam.
With Mary
going through the list. So we have also got a really fantastic partnership this year with Marie Curie. So we've put in 500k each. So we've got £1 million pot. The expressions of interest deadline for that has closed now, but we will be announcing the research grants that we funded, or we will be awarding them in March. So sort of we'll be communicating that in April and May. And that's looking at how we can improve the experiences of end-of-life care for people affected by dementia. And it's a really powerful partnership, bringing together Marie Curie's expertise in end-of-life and our expertise at the Alzheimer's Society on people's lived experience of dementia. So that's really exciting as well.
And I think that one's open till the 28th of October for anybody listening. Just because anybody wants to know any funding calls, not just from Alzheimer's Society, but from everybody, of course. Dementia Researchers website has very complete listings. So go check those out and subscribe to our newsletter, because we put these in there.
The expressions of interest deadline has passed for that Marie Curie.
Oh, has it?
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
Then I'm feeling quite smug, and now
the technicality.
Okay, there is another one, of course, because Alzheimer's Society also has a massive innovation team and program, and you've got the Innovators program is open from the 1st of October.
Yeah.
And we're going to be doing a whole special focus week on innovation with Alzheimer's Society in October as well, to talk about how some of those research findings, even by PhD students that might do, could be brought to market, could be used and implemented, because I think implementation is often a frustration amongst researchers, but innovation is one way to tackle that. And so it's great.
Absolutely. And we've got some really, really exciting plans with innovation, and we are really looking, we're having lots of conversations at the moment about how we can truly link up our research and innovation programs, so that researchers with those ideas can take them through and start thinking about sort of marketing and thinking about themselves more as entrepreneurs, and sort of the blending of those two worlds to make sure that we really are delivering change to people, and that, you know, we're moving research into practice. And how can we support the research community to work in a slightly different way to bring those products or solutions to a market to be tested for people.
And so I know one of those opens 1st of October. You've got another program as well, which is the actual funding part of that. But do keep an eye on our website. Again, subscribe to the newsletter, which you can do on the homepage at the top right-hand corner, because we're going to do this whole innovation focus week. And also as well, of course, we will be keeping you up to date on the progress of the Doctoral Training Centres, because for anybody listening, these PhD positions we've been talking about, just to bring us back to topic, when will they start to be advertised?
Yeah, so the Vascular and Inflammation Centre, so the Stuart Allen one led by Manchester, has recruited its first wave of students already. So they will start their studentships in September, October time. But the remaining two centres, so Lewy Bodies and the Integrated Care ones, will be advertising positions in January. Or from January. But I would say that anybody interested in any of these centres, because they'll be recruiting students over the period of the lifetime of the centres, if you are interested, do get in touch with the centre leads, and the sort of details of that will be in Adam's blog or on the Alzheimer's Society website. And, you know, to express your interest or to have those conversations about more specifics about when to apply and who to contact for those. But yeah, do watch this space for recruitment.
So we'll also advertise all of these on our website, and we're not just being passive and waiting for them to be advertised. I'm already been in touch with the leads from these centres to make sure they tell us in advance when these jobs are. So we will be promoting them on our socials as well, and making sure that the listings are on our website. So again, another reason to subscribe to our newsletter if you're not already. We've got a few more audience questions.
Yeah.
So we've got a question from Raymond, which has come through from X, which is more of a question about how they can get involved in research and if they think they have a problem. So I would suggest, first of all, go see your doctor if you're worried about your memory. That's the most important thing, is to go see your family doctor. And if you're interested in being involved with research, go to joindementiaresearch.nihr.ac.uk. We'll put a link with the notes that go with the show, which you can sign up to that on behalf of yourself. You can answer the questions which do indicate that you are worried about your memory but haven't had a diagnosis, is one of the ways you can go. And that will let researchers across the country know that you're interested, and they'll reach out to you if they've got suitable studies. But it'll also let you see anything you match. Next question comes from, I had this as a pre-sent one, which is, how do these centres aim to integrate patient and carer perspectives into their research?
So that is a theme that sort of was a requirement of the centres, is that they think about public and patient involvement in their programmes. So each of them will have their own way of doing that and their own way of engaging with people affected by dementia and their sort of wider communities and engagement. So I don't have the specifics on each centre, but I know that it's a core part of each one.
Wonderful, and I would, and I know from talking to our next podcast, which comes out on Monday, is all about co-production, and I know that the PhD students there have talked a lot about co-production. You can see how that there are opportunities, particularly in that one led by Professor Cooper and Nathan Davies, to involve some kind of co-production, because as somebody else was chatting before about, they are concerned that because all of these PhDs are funded by supervisors, that means the projects are already predefined, which kind of can stifle a little bit of creativity. But actually, I think most of these, there's some flexibility generally built into the systems, in that if you start on one thing, realize the research is taking you in another direction, that there's some flexibility in that system.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we, in terms of setting the centres up, we haven't defined all of the studentship titles yet either. So there is flexibility for the centres to respond as they go through, in terms of, it would be really great actually if that PhD that's coming in year 3 could now look at this because this PhD has done this, or, you know, so there's flexibility in that sense. And as you said, Adam, you know, lots of people start PhDs and find that actually they discover a different question, or they hit a bit of a roadblock on that one and have to pivot. And yeah, there's definitely flexibility in the system to sort of to move around in a space, and I think there's definitely space for co-production, and the society also has, you know, we work very closely with our research network volunteers who all have personal experience of dementia, and our previous program that used to be called Research Network Monitoring is now, I think, being called, I think we're in the process of rebranding it, but much more of a sort of partnership with our research network volunteers. So how can our volunteers support the students and the centres as well? So yeah, that's another way that the Alzheimer's Society can really add value to these studentships.
I mean, it makes complete sense that you wouldn't have already predetermined what the PhD students are going to do in 3 years' time, because who knows what discoveries might be made, what the
Exactly. Yeah.
landscape of care looks like in 3 years' time. Does that conversation between you and the DCCs, is that a dynamic, ongoing conversation? Can you influence that, say, 2 years, once these contracts have been awarded in 2 years' time? Can you go back and suggest that this is an area that needs something to be looked at?
Yeah, I think, it is a conversation, but we go through a very rigorous review system to make sure that the centres are set up and the supervisory teams are really strong, and the centres have been designed for them to be the experts and for them to say these are the gaps and these are, this is the best way of using the resource. So we've really scrutinized them to make sure that these centres are really set up and to lead the centres. So of course we talk to the centres, but it wouldn't be for us to influence a PhD studentship, for example. They're the experts in this, and it's for them to set their centre direction. But of course we will be regularly communicating with them about what they're doing.
Of course. We've had one, I think this is probably going to be our last question. And I feel like we've probably already talked a little bit to this, but the question is from Elizabeth on Instagram, which says, given there are already a drop-off in PhDs transitioning to research independence, are you thinking about the pipeline for supporting these students once their studentships are over?
Absolutely. So the Alzheimer's Society, in its commitment to early career researchers, is always thinking about the leaky pipeline and what we can do and where we can sort of add the most value with our limited financial resources and beyond, to sort of where can we add the most value, how can we support that pipeline, how can we give people the best opportunities at really critical points in their career. And of course we're very mindful that by funding 85 PhD studentships, there is going to be a need for postdoc opportunities, perhaps more postdoc opportunities in future years than perhaps we're seeing at the moment. So we're very, that's a live conversation internally about what our postdoc offer is over the next sort of 5 or 6 years in parallel to this program as students start to come out. But as I said, we do have a fellowship program currently. We have you can still apply to us for single clinical PhD studentships. So please do have a look on our website about what we offer at the moment, because we do have those fellowships available annually now. But yes, we are looking at, how do we sort of future-proof our postdoc support for these students as they finish.
And I think one of the ways that you've done really well to try and address that is to bring together some partnerships, because you're only one organization, you are charitably funded, there's only so much you can do. But I think some of the partnerships you've had recently with the likes of the NIHR, this new one with Marie Curie, and you've had one with the economics.
Yeah, so we are a partner on the ESRC Network Plus calls and the EPSRC Network Plus call, which is live at the moment. So we're an affiliate partner of that, and I think it just puts us in a really, I would say, useful position in the research community, just in terms of bringing people together and making sure that things are joined up in a similar way to you, Adam, in terms of bringing the community together and sort of, leveraging dementia research opportunities and making sure that they're joined up to the existing opportunities and infrastructure that we've got in place. And we're making the most of the investment when it does come in terms of how it all comes together.
Partnerships has got to be the key, right? I mean, we talk
Absolutely.
about collaborations in academia, and I think partnerships in funding is one way to try and address that leaky pipeline as well. And great creative ways like your innovator program. Well, honestly, I think we've probably we've certainly answered all the questions I had and all the questions that we've had come in. So just to recap, it's just over £9 million in funding, 3 new doctoral training centres, which are going to look at they're going to look at vascular, Lewy bodies, and integrated care. They're centres up and down the country. This is 80 PhD students over
85.
85, sorry, I still got that right. 85 PhD students over 5 years. Some of these opportunities will start to come up as soon as September.
Yeah.
So do keep an eye on the Dementia Researcher website. We also have a ton of resources as well. For anybody who's applying for a PhD studentship, we've got blogs and podcasts and articles and resources that can help you write a great application, to do well in your interview. And in fact, if you're really thinking about going for an interview, jump over to our community space, because in 15 minutes time we're going to have another live stream talking about acing academic job interviews, which could be important for you later this year if you're thinking about one of these studentships. Thank you very much, Katherine.
Perfect segue there, Adam.
Really, really great to hear from you. And congratulations to Alzheimer's Society for funding this, and of course to all those successful bidders on these doctoral training centres. And we're going to be really excited to work with these students over the next few years to bring you news of their progress through our service.